Hello, this is Dr. Jim Swaffield. In this lesson, we are going to have a look at the topic of services marketing and how the marketing of services differs from the marketing of tangible products. Let's start by looking at what we mean by a service. When a student attends a university lecture or goes to a concert, they have received a service. When a person receives advice from a financial planner, they have received a service. And when one goes for a soothing massage, they have also received a service. A common element of all these services is that after the service has been delivered, the customer walks away with nothing tangible. No product is produced. What they do receive is something intangible, such as a pleasant memory, knowledge, or a good feeling. In contrast to services, when you buy a physical, tangible product, you can physically see what you are buying. This means that you can evaluate it before you buy it. Because you can conduct some form of an evaluation before buying a physical product, this lowers the perception of risk. Now, the services that I have shown you so far, that is, attending a university lecture, listening to a concert, getting advice from a financial planner, and getting a massage, are what we call pure services. This is because when you receive a pure service, nothing physically tangible is produced. So there is nothing that the customer received that could be resold. But sometimes a customer buys both a physical product and a service at the same time. For example, a customer could buy a computer, which is the physical tangible product, and at the same time, they could buy a service such as home installation, computer training, and or monthly IT support. Here we have an example of a product-service continuum. The blue bars show the percentage of the purchase that is product-based, and the red bars represent the percentage that is service-based. For example, on the left, when you buy a box of salt, there is no service component whatsoever. So the bar is entirely blue. On the right side of the continuum, we have a single red bar with the heading Financial Planning above the bar. And the bars that are a combination of blue and red show what consumers buy include a combination of a product and a service in varying degrees. The main takeaway from this slide is that services are predominantly intangible. This is a really important concept, but before I dig into the details as to why it's so important, I need to explain two more concepts. Specifically, the concepts are the concept of inconsistency and inseparability. Starting with the concept of inconsistency in service delivery, on the left side of this continuum, we have products that are manufactured by a machine. One of the benefits of producing products by highly calibrated equipment or machines is that you can get high consistency between each product. For example, in this picture of the donuts on the conveyor belts, the donuts are essentially clones of each other. The donuts all weigh the same, have the same circumference, the same number of calories, and so on. In contrast, the donuts on the right side were made by a baker. We can see by their shape that different amounts of batter were poured into the tin donut trays. Now, if you were given a big donut, you probably wouldn't complain. However, if you paid full price and were given a small donut, you might be disgruntled and think this company's quality control is hit and miss, and for this reason, you might take your business elsewhere. Next, we will look at the concept of simultaneous production and consumption. What this means is that the customer often consumes the service at the same time the service is being delivered. For example, if you are watching a music performance, you are consuming the service at the same time the service is being delivered. And if you are getting your hair cut, you are consuming or receiving the service at the same time that it is being delivered. From the perspective of the consumer, this creates a perception of risk. If you buy a product and you don't like it, you can often return it and get your money back. But if you get a bad haircut, you are stuck with it until your hair grows back. This image shows when we combine the intangible nature of services with inconsistent service delivery and the issue of simultaneous production and consumption, consumers feel a sense of uncertainty. This uncertainty creates a perception of risk. And when consumers feel a purchase is too risky, they often choose to not make the purchase. Therefore, marketers must find a way to make the intangible tangible and find ways to reduce the perception of purchase risk. Sometimes, to reduce the perception of risk, service providers show samples of work that they have done for other customers. They may also share testimonials from prior satisfied customers. And when appropriate, they may also give demonstrations, and sometimes they give guarantees and warranties to let customers know that if they're not happy with the service, they will do what they can to make the customer happy. Another issue that is related to the intangible nature of services is the process by which consumers make judgments about service quality. Specifically, if a service is intangible and there are no product attributes or features that customers can examine, what do consumers base their perceptions of service quality on? I will share with you a story that will demonstrate what I mean. Many years ago, I was giving a presentation to a group of physicians on how patients form perceptions of physician service quality. I explained because most patients do not have medical training, they cannot objectively evaluate whether a doctor is using proper procedures to diagnose and treat patients. So, to form a perception of service quality, patients use what is called surrogate measures to infer physician quality. For example, a patient who is sitting in a doctor's waiting room will look around to see if there are any medical degrees hanging on the wall. Patients look at the quality of the furniture and infer. If the furniture is old and ratty, the physician may not be very good. Likewise, if the furniture is clean and modern, patients may infer that the physician is good. When the physician walks into the treatment room, the patients look to see if the physician has a stethoscope hanging around their neck. If they see a stethoscope, they think, oh good, this doctor knows what they're doing. Now, back to the presentation that I was giving to physicians on the topic of how consumers form perceptions of service quality. One of the doctors in the audience shared a story that reinforced the point that I was making. This doctor had been working in a small town in northern Alberta. He said the most sophisticated piece of medical equipment that he had was his stethoscope. Despite this lack of equipment, he gained a reputation as a super doc and was given the nickname the baby doctor. Expecting mothers would travel all across northern Alberta just to see this doctor. he said that he was puzzled as to how he earned the super doc reputation so quickly. And then one day he discovered what it was. He did one thing that the expecting mothers loved. He took his stethoscope off his neck and put it on the mother so that she could hear the heartbeat of her own baby. The expecting mothers were overjoyed to hear that their baby had a healthy heartbeat. Once they heard the baby's heartbeat, they inferred that the reason their baby was so healthy was because this doctor was so good. Now, there's no doubt that this doctor was good. However, these were just prenatal checkups. All he was doing was monitoring the baby's development. He really hadn't done anything that would have affected the baby's health up to this point. So the main point is, because services are often intangible, customers look for surrogates that they can use to infer the quality of a service provider. In this case, the surrogate measure was the doctor putting his stethoscope on the expecting mom and letting her hear the heartbeat of her baby. What we are going to do next is focus our attention on the psychological processes that consumers use when forming a perception of service quality. Let's start with a definition of service quality. Service quality is defined as an attitude relating to the superiority or excellence of services. Perceptions of service quality are also subjective and relative to the individual. I want to draw your attention to the word attitude and differentiate it from a belief. Attitudes are formed by combining multiple beliefs. For example, if I asked you what you think of a smart car, you might have a positive attitude towards the smart car and say that it is a good car. Good is the attitude. Or you may say the car is not good, which in this case you would have a negative attitude. If you think that the smart car is good, and I asked you, why do you think that this car is good? You might say the smart car is easy to park, good on fuel, fun to drive, and inexpensive to buy. These 4 points represent independent beliefs. When we form an attitude, we blend multiple beliefs together and then summarize these beliefs with a single summary word, such as good or bad. If you think that the smart car is not a good car, and I asked you why you think this, you might say, my belief is that the smart car is unsafe because it's so small and it looks like a toy. You might also point out that there's not much room in the car. And due to the low clearance, you might think that it would be easy to get stuck in the snow. Once these beliefs are blended together, a single word will be used to capture the customer's attitude, such as the car is good or the car is bad. Attitudes about service quality are formed in the same manner. That is, they blend together numerous beliefs. These beliefs are structured around the following 5 categories. These categories are also referred to as the dimensions of service quality. The first category is tangibles. Tangibles refer to the appearance of the physical facilities, equipment, personnel, and communication materials such as a company's letters, brochures, and business cards. The second category is reliability. Reliability refers to the ability to perform the promised service dependably and accurately. This can also include getting the invoice correct. The third category is responsiveness. Responsiveness refers to the willingness of the service providers to help customers and provide prompt service. The fourth category is assurance. Assurance refers to how respectful and considerate the service personnel are and how willing they are to listen to customers and answer their questions. The final category is empathy. Empathy refers to knowing the customer and understanding their needs. A service provider who is empathetic is one who is approachable and available to hear customer concerns. Here I am using a blender to symbolize what happens. Specifically, the customers blend these 5 categories and then form a single attitude. Here are a few important notes about forming perceptions of service quality. As already mentioned, perceptions of service quality are subjective and relative to the individual. As a rule, you should not try to please everyone. What you should do is identify how your target market forms perceptions of service quality and aim to deliver high service quality for this market segment. Now, we have talked about how consumers blend multiple beliefs to form an attitude about service quality. But there is one more concept that is very important to understand. This concept is called the service quality equation. The service quality equation shows that customers form perceptions of service quality by comparing their pre-service expectations with perceptions of service received. Or stated another way, service quality is equal to pre-service expectations minus post-service perceptions of services received. This SQ equals E minus P formula is not a real mathematical formula. It's called a discrepancy paradigm. A discrepancy paradigm simply shows that there is a difference between two perspectives. Here is an example. Imagine going to a fine dining restaurant. Once you have been seated, how long should you have to wait before a waiter comes to your table to take your order? Let's assume that the market segment that you belong to has an expectation that your order should be taken within 15 minutes of sitting down. However, the actual amount of time for your order to be taken is 30 minutes. What we have here is a gap between your expectations and what was received. In this case, because it took longer than expected to take the order, there will be a negative perception of service quality. In contrast, if your expectation is that your order should be taken in 15 minutes and the actual time is much quicker, say 10 minutes, you will say, wow, that was fast service. And as a result, you will form the perception that there was good service quality. The difference between what consumers want and what consumers receive is called a service gap. What managers want to do is find a way to close this gap so that the customer expectations are met. Sometimes they do this by doing a better job of managing customer expectations. Other times they may close the gap by making improvements to the service being delivered. And finally, we conclude this lesson with the 4-step process for delivering great service. This process is as follows. First, identify who your target market is. You cannot please everybody, so aim to provide good service quality to your primary target market. Second, identify the specific service quality dimensions that are important to your target market. Third, conduct a gap analysis by comparing pre-service expectations with post-service perceptions of service received. And lastly, determine what needs to be done to improve the perceptions of service quality. This may involve doing a better job of managing customer expectations or doing a better job of meeting these expectations. I will leave you with one final thought. You are always better off to under-promise and over-deliver than to over-promise and under-deliver. You're always better off to under-promise and over-deliver than to over-promise and under-deliver. And this is how you can assure that you will create a positive perception of service quality.